Okay, welcome to some more fun with math. Here I want to look specifically at some examples of addition and subtraction with fractions and delve deep into ways of being able to combine your like terms easily. So first and foremost, in order to either add or subtract a fraction, there is one massive rule that must always be followed. And that rule says that you must have common denominators. So when we're adding fractions, the first thing you have to do is you have to look for that common denominator. If you don't have one, then you need to find the least common multiple, essentially, between your two denominators, which would give you what's called the least common denominator. There are many ways for you to be able to find a least common multiple. My favorite way, which I've always felt is the fastest way, is to look at your primes. So dividing out your primes is one quick way to give you a least common multiple. Once you find that, you're going to keep your denominator the same, and you're going to add the numerators together. So I've got some examples here that we're going to look at, some of which already have common denominators, some of which need them. So if you look at this first one, notice my denominators here are both 8. Since they're the same, it means that I can leave them the same. It means my denominator is going to be 8, and my numerator is going to be 1 plus 5. 1 plus 5 is going to give me a 6 over 8. And then, remember, you need to reduce. 6 and 8 have 2 in common. So if you divide a 2 out of both, it means you get 3 over 4. And that is your final result. Now this next one, I don't have common denominators. My denominators here are 16 and 12. So the first thing to do is to find that common multiple. And so I like to do it by dividing out my primes. Of course, we could simply look at them and determine what is common between them. You can list out multiples and see which one is the least one that's the same. It's up to you how you go about doing it, but I like to do it where I list out my primes. So I know 16 can break into 2 and 8, and I know 8 can break into 2 and 4, and I know 4 can break into 2 and 2. The other thing I know is I have 12, and I know 12 can break into 3 and 4, and 4 can break into 2 and 2. So if I look at it, I have 2 to the 4th, and then I have 3 to the 1st, and 2 squared. So I'm going to use 2 to the 4th, and I'm going to use 3 to the 1st. So my least common multiple here is going to be 2 to the 4th times 3 to the 1st, which is going to give me 48 as a result. So I have to look at, how do I turn 16 into 48? Well, I do that by multiplying by 3. So this is going to be 3 times 3, and then it's going to be over 48. And I'm adding this, and I have to look at, how do I turn 12 into 48? Well, I do that by multiplying by 4. So this is then going to be 1 times 4 over 48. So we can write it as a single fraction with 48 on the bottom. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. 9 plus 4 is going to give us 13 over 48. There is nothing in common between 13 and 48, so my fraction is reduced as far as it can go. We will use the same process when working with 3 fractions that we used when working with 2 fractions. So here, if I look at 8, I know 8 can break into 2 times 4, and 4 breaks into 2 times 2, leaving me with 2 cubed as its result. We've already done 12, so remember that's 3 times 4, which breaks into 2 times 2, so this result here is 3 to the first times 2 squared. Then we have 15, and 15 breaks into 3 and 5. 3 and 5 are both prime, so this result is 3 to the first times 5 to the first. So when looking at these, again, remember you use the highest one. So I'm going to use 2 cubed, I'm going to use 3 to the first, and I'm going to use 5 to the first. So my LCM is going to be 2 cubed times 3 to the first times 5 to the first. And when I do all of that, I'm going to come up with 120. So now I have to ask myself, how do I turn 8 into 120? Well, that's multiplying top and bottom by 15. So this is going to be 3 times 15 over 120. And then how do I turn 12 into 120? Well, I multiply by 10. And so here, I'm going to have 5 times 10 over 120. And then how do I turn 15 into 120? Well, I multiply by 8. So then I'm going to have 8 times 8 over 120. So that means I've got my whole thing is over 120. So I have 3 times 15, which is going to give me 45, plus 5 times 10 is 50, plus 8 by 8 is 64. So I'm going to add all those together, and I'm going to come up with 159 over 120. Now, unless you are specified to provide the mixed answer, we are looking for the improper. Let's look at this next one. Again, I have 24, 36, and 48. So I'm going to break them down. 24 can become 2 times 12. 12 can become 2 times 6. 6 can become 2 times 3. So this is going to be 2 cubed times 3 to the first. 36 can break into 6 and 6. We know 6 breaks into 2 times 3, and we do it again, 2 times 3. Therefore, this is going to be 2 squared times 3 squared. We then have 48. So 48 can break into 6 and 8. 6 breaks into 2 times 3. 8 breaks into 2 times 4. 4 breaks into 2 times 2. So we have 2 to the 4th times 3 to the 1st. So of these, we have to take the largest. So I have 2 cubed, 2 squared, 2 to the 4th, so that's the largest. Then I have 3 to the 1st, 3 squared, 3 to the 1st, so this is the largest. So to find my actual LCM, says that I'm going to do 2 to the 4th times 3 squared. And that's going to give me 144 as a result. So then, just like before, we have to figure out how to change 24, 36, and 48 into 144. Well, to change 24 into 144, I multiply by 6. So I'm going to have 11 times 6 over 144. To change 36, I multiply by 4. So this is 7 times 4 over 144. And then 48 multiplies by 3. So this is 91 times 3 over 144. So with that, we're going to do the same thing, where we are going to put the whole thing over 144, and we are going to do our multiplication. So 11 times 6 is 66, plus 7 times 4 is 28, plus 91 times 3 is 273. We're going to add them all together, and we're going to get 367 divided by 144. And then, of course, with this, you always want to check simplify. You always want to make sure that you're reducing down as far as you can go, so always double check it and make sure. Now those were some examples of adding. Here's going to be just a few examples of subtracting. And again, if you notice, we have the exact same definition we had before. Again, where our most important rule is that you have to have this common denominator. Again, we're going to go through the same stuff, which is you have to find your least common multiple and work from there. So I have 5/12 minus 2 over 15. So again, I'm going to take 12 and I'm going to break it down, and there's many ways to do it. Last time I think I used 3 and 4, so we can use 2 and 6. And then 6 breaks into 2 and 3. So this becomes 2 squared times 3 to the first. And then I have 15, which breaks into 3 and 5. So I have 3 to the first times 5 to the first. So just like before, I have 2 squared, I have 3 to the first, I have 5 to the first. So here my LCM is going to be found by 2 squared times 3 to the first times 5 to the first. So that is going to give us a result of 60. So now I have to look at how do I turn 12 into 60 and how do I turn 15 into 60. Well, 12 into 60 goes 5 times, so this is 5 times 5 over 60, and I'm going to subtract that from 15. So turning 15 into 60 says that I have to multiply by 4. So this becomes 2 times 4 over 60. Just like with the addition, we can write the whole thing over the single denominator 60. 5 times 5 is 25, and this time we're subtracting. 2 times 4 is 8. 25 minus 8 is going to give me 17 over 60. and this is reduced as far as I can. Let's look at another one. Here I've got 25 and 35. So 25 can break down into 5 times 5. So this is going to be 5 squared. 35 can break down into 5 and 7. So this is 5 to the first times 7 to the first. Again, I'm going to use the greatest of each. So 5 squared and 7 to the first. So my LCM is going to be 5 squared times 7 to the first. I can't, I'm recording. And so when I'm looking at that, I have 5 squared, which is 25 times 7, which is going to give me an LCM of 175. So now I have to look at how many times, or how to turn 25 into 175, and how to turn 35 into 175. So to turn 25 into 175, I have to multiply everything by 7. So this becomes 18 times 7. I'm subtracting. And then this becomes 4 times 5. Each of them is under 175. I can change that into one denominator of 175. When I look at 18 times 7, I end up with 126. I am subtracting. And 4 times 5 is 20. 126 minus 20 is going to leave me with 106 over 175. Now let's look at another one. I have 18 and 24. So 18 is going to break down into 2 times 9, and 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. So this is 3 squared times 2 to the first. And then I have 24, which is going to break down into 4 times 6. 4 breaks into 2 and 2. 6 breaks into 2 and 3. Gives me 2 cubed times 3 to the first. Again, we want to identify the greatest. So I have 3 squared and 2 cubed. So my LCM here is going to be 3 squared times 2 cubed, which is going to give me 72. So then I have to look at, how do I turn 18 into 72, and how do I turn 24? So when I'm looking at 18, I multiply by 4. So this is 11 times 4 over my 72. I'm subtracting. And then this would be 7 times 3 over 72. I can put the whole thing over 1, so this is a 72. 11 times 4 is 44, and I'm going to subtract away 21. 44 minus 21 is going to equal 23 over 72. Now the last thing we can do with these is we can come up with application problems for doing addition and subtraction. And just like before, or with any other problem, you have to be able to recognize which parts of the problem are going to signify that you are adding. And a lot of it comes down to how the problem is worded. So here, in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is you have to solve the problem in order, or by writing out the problem first. So you got to come up with your expression. So we have, for a community project, an earth science class volunteered 1 hour per day for 3 days. to join the State Highway Beautification Project. The students collected trash along a 4/5 mile stretch of highway the first day, 5/8 mile stretch the second day, and half-mile stretch the third. How many miles along the highway did they clean? So here, what do we have? We have on the first day we went 4/5, and we are adding because we want to know how many total miles they actually cleaned. On the second day we went 5/8, and on the third day we went a half. So with these, the first thing that I need to do is recognize that 5 is going to break into 1 and 5. So that's going to be 5 to the first. My 8 is going to break down into 2 and 4, which again becomes 2 and 2. So it is 2 cubed. And 2 is not really going to break down because it's 1 and 2, so this is going to be 2 to the first. Therefore, I'm going to use 5 to the first, and I'm going to use 2 cubed. So my LCM here is created by 5 to the first times 2 cubed, which is going to be 40. So then how do I turn 5 into 40? Well, I multiply by 8. So this is 4 times 8 over 40. I'm adding that. Well, 8 to 40 goes 5 times, so this is 5 times 5 over 40. And then 2 into 40 is a 20. So this is 1 times 20 over 40. I can write the whole thing over one denominator. 8 and 4 is 32. 5 and 5 is 25. 20 and 1 is 20. So that means this is going to become 77 over 40. Now we want to know how many miles. So that means we need to have a mixed number solution. A mixed number solution says I need to change my improper fraction into its mixed counterpart. So the easiest way to do that is going to be to take it, and we are going to put the numerator on the inside, the denominator on the outside. 40 can go into 77 once. When we subtract our 40 away, we end up with 37. So that means my mixed number is going to be 1 and 37 over 40 miles. And this is my solution. Now this next one says that from a 4/5 pound wheel of cheese, a 1/4 pound piece was served. How much of the cheese remained? So because we want to know how much remained, this says we're going to subtract. So I'm starting with 4/5 and I'm subtracting out 1/4. Well, I know 5 again is going to break down into 5 in itself. So this is 5 to the first. 4, however, is going to break down into 2 and 2. So this is 2 squared. It means my LCM here is going to be 5 to the first times 2 squared. So this in itself is going to give me 20. How do I turn 5 into 20? I multiply by 4. So this is 4 times 4 over 5, and I'm over 20. And I'm subtracting. 4 into 20 is multiplied by 5. So this is 1 times 5 over 20. I can put the whole thing over one denominator. 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 5 is 5. So this is going to give me 11 over 20 pounds left. Alright, the next example I have says that a carpenter glues 2 kinds of plywood together. He gives a 1/4 inch piece of cherry plywood to He glues a 1/4 inch piece of cherry plywood to a 3/8 piece of less expensive plywood. What is the total thickness of these pieces? So that says I'm going to do 1/4 plus 3/8. Now, in all of this, we've talked about doing your least common multiple by breaking down by your primes. But in this instance, another way that we could approach that is we could look at, does 4 go into 8 evenly? Well, in this case, it does, which means my least common multiple here is going to be 8. It is a slightly different method of finding least common multiples, and one that I would only ever suggest to be done if you can automatically recognize that there is a similarity between them. Otherwise, I would fall back to dividing out your primes. So here, I know in order to turn 4 into 8, I have to multiply by 2. So this is going to be 1 times 2 over 8. And since my other side is already an 8, I don't have to do anything to it. It means I can put the whole thing over a single denominator. 1 times 2 is 2 plus 3. And this is going to give me a total of 5 over 8. And then in this case, we're looking at inches thick. Now the last one I wanted to look at was this, and it says that Josh has a large homework assignment to do this weekend. He is able to get 4/15 of the assignment done Friday after class. If he doesn't want to leave more than 2/9 of the assignment to do before Sunday, what fraction of the assignment must be completed on Saturday? So we're trying to find out how much to do on Saturday. Well, to do that says I have to start with the whole assignment and then subtract away the part from Friday and subtract away the desired part for Sunday. And that should leave me with how much to do on Saturday. Well, the whole part is going to be 1, because that's 100%. On Friday, we did 4/15 of the assignment, and then I only want to do 2/9 on Sunday. And that should give me how much I have to complete of the assignment on Saturday. So again, I have 15 and 9. So I can take my 15, and this becomes 3 and 5, which is 3 to the first times 5 to the first. I then have 9, which breaks into 3 and 3, which is 3 squared. So to find my least common multiple, remember I take the largest of them. So my least common multiple here is going to be 3 squared times 5 to the first. And this is going to give me 45 as a result. So I have to turn 1 into something over 45 So it's going to become 45 over 45. I am subtracting. In order to turn 15 into 45, says I have to multiply by 3. So this is 4 times 3 over 45. Again, I'm subtracting. And 9 into 45 is 5. So this becomes 2 times 5 over 45. I can put the whole thing over my single denominator, and this becomes 45 minus 4 times 3 is 12 minus 2 times 5 is 10. And that is going to leave me with 23 over 45 amount of homework to do on Saturday. So this is 23 over 45 to do on Saturday. So that is everything that you need to get a jump start on adding and subtracting fractions and the way that they work. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, remember, math really is bananas. So as long as you keep smiling, ask tons and tons of questions, and have some fun with your math, everything will work out. And as always, I'll see you next time.